We're two self-care experts,
a massage therapist,
and a licensed professional counselor,
husband and wife, and parents of 3,
business owners and working professionals
who have intimate experience with stress both professionally and personally.
Our podcast aims to teach the everyday professional
how to live through the stresses in life
while learning to be their best in life.
I can't hear now.
Can you hear us now?
Yes. Now I can.
Okay, I'm sorry. We were muted. Okay, so we'll start over and say thanks you guys for joining us. We are back for season 4 of Living the Stress Life podcast. And so we're super excited to be back.
You're gonna have to come in a little bit, both of us.
Okay. Realize
we got a little rusty at this, y'all, so we're gonna have to make sure.
I thought I had our camera positioning just right.
That we're in the frame. There we go.
How about I do it like that? How about that? You probably just need to scoot back. Can you see us good, Shay?
I can see Lemar, but you're kind of like cut off.
Interesting.
This is what we're looking like.
Okay.
So you got to scoot in, but her head is bigger than mine, y'all.
First of all, don't do me.
It's hard for us to share the same space.
There we go. How about that?
Yeah, I can see you guys.
Okay. All right. So I just had my settings incorrectly, and mind you, it's been a while since we've done a podcast. But it wouldn't be right if we did not kick the podcast back off for season 4, bringing awareness to domestic violence. I was really working really hard to make sure I did not let the month of October pass. And so I'm really excited. We have a special guest with us tonight, Shay, and I'll let Shay kind of introduce herself and give some background about her, about herself in just a few minutes. But I kind of want to give y'all updates, just check in with everybody.
So, it's been a while, like 6 months since we've done a podcast. We've had people asking, hey, when did y'all stop doing the podcast? What you gonna do? And we really had to work on some content. We wanted to make sure we brought relevant content, relevant discussion to the table. So we had to take some time to do that. And, my goal for Life Touch Massage was always to bridge what we do together and to bring a wellness center to the community. So we've been working in the background on that as well. Some of y'all might have seen the interview on Fox 6 that we're working on putting a meditation park in Inslee area. So we have a lot of things that we've been working on surrounding our goals for bringing healthy mind, body, and wellness to the inner city communities.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I am in the process of opening my own counseling and consulting practice. I've done it for other people for years. I still do mental health, but I do it for a nonprofit right now. And so I've been kind of working behind the scenes on just laying the foundation to do good work. And so I'm very excited that we have taken our time. It's all about work-life balance, right? And so sometimes it's hard to do multiple things at one time, and you have to just kind of take your time. And so that's what we're kind of doing with the podcast, is taking our time, but make sure we have good content, good dialogue, that we're discussing issues that are pertinent
and relevant
and helpful to the community. And so we thank y'all for joining in. Miranda Lucas and Brinkley Fuller.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And let's get to our special guest. I would like to take the time before we start talking about our topic and let her introduce herself.
And I want to just say thank you to Shay Thank you. She said this is her first time sharing her story publicly, and
Yes.
she decided to do it on this platform. So we really appreciate that. We believe that your story will help many, and that this session today will help many people who have witnessed domestic violence, have been in those circumstances, and just don't know how to deal with it. So we thank you and we appreciate you for being here today.
Thank you
So
for
Shay, can
having
you
me.
tell?
Speak.
No, no problem. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Well, my name is Shay Perry. I am originally from San Diego, California, but I have been in Birmingham, Alabama since 2009. And I am a single mom of two. I have a 25-year-old and a 9-year-old. I have a 6-year-old daughter. And I work in commercial banking at a bank, one of a high profit banks. And I bartend and bar back and runner, whatever they need me to do at Bar Sebastian part time.
Okay. Shout out to that's a local restaurant here in Birmingham. And so Bar Sebastian is located inside of Michael's, which is downtown Birmingham, Alabama, next to Regions baseball field. So
And right across from Railroad Park.
check them
Yeah.
out. Shay, I want to say thank you so much because I also recognize that sometimes we're not given the opportunity to share our story. And so I'm really excited to be able to offer this opportunity for you to be able to share your story publicly. I think when I saw you share a piece of your story online, maybe last October during domestic violence awareness, I remember reading the post and just being like, wow, like, God, I would have never imagined that she's experienced something like that. Like, you know, I'm a therapist and I know you can't put a face to certain types of traumas. You can't put a face to PTSD or to rape or, even to people who typically are offenders. And so just to know, hey, this is somebody I know that has this outgoing personality. We instantly clicked when we met each other years ago working together. I would have never imagined seeing you and running into you just out and about that you had experienced something like that. So I want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide you the space to be able to share your story.
You're very welcome.
So, hello, Candace. Hello, Carla. I want to say hello to you guys, all of you guys that are checking in. So, we're going to get into our topic, which is today's topic is the ugly truth surviving domestic violence. And I think it's important for us to just kind of start off today's podcast really discussing what is domestic violence? How does it look? Who does it happen to? What does the statistics say? And we always try to do our homework before the podcast. And so I want to start with just giving a statistic for domestic violence. The current statistic for 2021 is that about 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, sexual violence, and or partner stalking with injury today in the US. When I looked up the statistics for Alabama specifically, we ranked number 20 in the US in terms of domestic violence. And I think
So Alabama ranks number 20?
we're number 20.
Wow.
For domestic violence against women, it's about 37%. And for against men, it's about 29% of our population experience domestic violence. So let's start off talking about what is domestic violence, because I think sometimes we think that domestic violence is just physical violence, but domestic violence comes in very many forms. Some of the forms that we found, yeah, no, I have to have my notes.
But one thing I want to interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
But Shay, one question I have for you is, what is your definition of domestic violence?
Oh, that's a good question.
So for me, it would be anything that is harmful mentally, physically, and emotionally.
And that's it. That's the definition. I mean, that's the textbook definition. It's any type of abuse that happens, more than just physical, mentally, emotionally. It can even come in the form of financial abuse, which,
Yeah.
many of us don't even consider, like, what does that even look like, right?
Right. Right.
Financial abuse, but it's anything that harms a person in a negative way, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially.
Yeah. It's often a power thing, right? So right now, even though we did mention that, males also get abused, majority of the cases are men abusing women. So we don't want to forget that. And when we're speaking today, we will speak generally in those terms,
Yeah.
talking about the abuse that women receive from men, because we found that that is what happens most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, Especially being sensitive to, our guest today, we will focus on domestic violence for men, but we're going to talk about the differences. I think it would be improper to really discuss that today. But I want to get into the topic, starting off with you, Shay. Just kind of share your story with us. Share your story. Just starting from the beginning, like what it, how you met this person that ended up abusing you, and how that relationship kind of just transitioned from the beginning to the end.
Well, Lamar touched on financial abuse and didn't realize at the time, but after going through therapy and counseling, I realized that's how my abuser was able to weave me in. But we officially met on Tinder, and he was somebody that I knew of, but by meeting on Tinder, we decided, to date. And I'll just start by saying, at the time, I was in a very, very, very dark place in my life. I had already divorced my ex-husband, but then we got into a really, really messy custody battle. So I was fighting to get something that I already had back, and some lies and deceit had came across, and I was at a really, really low place. So when I met the person, he was charming and just full of laughter and jokes. And at that time, that's what I needed, somebody to kind of just cheer me up from everything that I was going through. Unbeknownst to me, he knew this before. I didn't find out until after my situation. But we met, we went out a few times, and he was flashing money. Well, going through a very severe battle and exhausting all my funds, IRA, 401, everything, that was appealing to me because I didn't really have a lot of it at the time. I had lost pretty much everything. So when we would go out, he was paying. It was always, come to my house, or I'll buy this for you, I'll buy that for you. So he kind of wooed me in on the financial tip to kind of keep me at arm's length so that way I wouldn't leave because he knew I needed something from him.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't date very long. It was a very, very short lived relationship of sorts. And because my, I guess, wall was down, I didn't have my guard up in my right mind. I saw the signs, but again, I was in a dark place. So I didn't really adhere to them. The red flags, as people say, that were flying ever so freely in my face, I pretty much ignored. But the first straw was, like I said, I was going through a very severe custody battle, and I was talking to my children a lot, just trying to, get them back in my life to where they were back living with me permanently. And one of the conversations was, "You're with me. She can wait. This is my time."
Mm.
Mm.
That, of course, is a
Yep.
red flag. Male should tell your children, especially knowing the situation you're in, should be put on the back burner, and they're supposed to come before your children.
Right. So that was one
So
of the
that was
first
red
red
flag.
flags.
Red flag one. But again, dark place, didn't see it. Money's being thrown my way. Let's go eat. Let's go out. Let's go out of town. Hey, get my mind off my situation. The second red flag is when I went to his home, I saw clothes and I saw some women's clothes on the bathroom door. And I asked him about it. And he was like, oh, that's my ex. She left it. I've been telling her to come get her stuff, but hey, she never came get it. So I'm going to just leave it here. Again, another red flag as to why is this woman's clothes here, all your children's clothes here, but you're not with your children.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't pay attention to it. The third red flag was after being at his house for a while, all of a sudden his phone was off, his power was off, his cable was off. Found out he didn't have a checking account. He asked me to take him to a checking place, and I'm like, "You work for a prestigious, business. You've been with this business for 10+ years. How do you not have a checking account?"
Right.
And
Right.
just like, oh, I went through some with my first, what did he call it? He said it was a business arranger, his first child's mother, and he didn't want them taking the child support out of his check, so he just asked for regular checks to come to him.
Mm.
Again, something I again should have ran from, because if you're running from your
So you had,
responsibilities, what did you say?
so those were prompts like within you, right, at that moment, and it
Correct.
was like red flags that, and the reason I'll stop you there is because I think it's important for our listeners to be aware of the red flags, right? Of course, on Facebook, I think it was a week or two ago, it was a funny thing. Everybody was posting the red flag thing. But by this
Right.
being Domestic Violence Month, Awareness Month, we want to know that you guys know that this is a very serious matter, you know. So some of those red flags you really need to pay attention to, and paying attention to your story today will help those listeners say, huh, I might be in a relationship where I've seen these red flags and have ignored them as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think you highlighted something that was really important too, Shay, is that because you saw those red flags, but because you were going through a custody battle, you didn't have time to process those. You were in a vulnerable place. And so they were able to kind of come in and kind of skate by because that was not a priority right now. What was your priority was trying to get your children back. So that relationship sounds like to me it served as an escape. And so that's why you may not have been focusing on the red flags as much. It's because it was an escape from your reality, which was really the priority, which was getting your children back.
Correct.
So,
Most
you
definitely.
go ahead and continue. I'm so we didn't mean to cut you out, but I do think it was important for people to really recognize, listen to these red flags.
Another issue was L bomb. You dropped that very quickly, and I'm just like, but you don't even
Mm,
know me. So how do you love me? You don't even know like my government name. You know Shay,
Mm.
but you don't know
Shay.
what's on my birth certificate. So right, you don't know what's on my birth certificate. So how do you love me? So it was just kind of little things like that. And I kept asking about his children. I'm like, well, where are your children? He was like, I think his daughter was maybe 4 or 5, and he was like, look, I asked her mom for her. It's not my responsibility. If she want to see me, she can call me. And I'm like, she's
Mm.
like 4 or 5. Like, you're not in your real. So
Another red
I know
flag.
one day we were at the mall. Another red flag. We were at the mall walking. He was like, oh, there go my daughter right there. And I'm like, okay, so you gonna go talk to her? So I kind of went upstairs out the way and was looking down, and I actually still have the video coverage of that. So I was videotaping the interaction between, him, and not as a spy, but to be like, here's some footage for you, babe, so you can see, you and your daughter. I noticed the mom was real standoffish and was kind of
Mm.
like, constantly looking over her shoulder. And I'm like, this is really weird. Like, I haven't seen your daughter in a few months. She's right here. Why is she not being more forthcoming? And he was like, so he came upstairs and I was like, are you getting her? He was like, no, explicitives about the mom and she acting funny and whatever. I just really don't care. Whatever, I'm gonna just take her to court. And I was like, well, can she get her stuff from the house? And he was like, I told her she told me she's not coming over there. Again,
Yeah.
red flag. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on? Your daughter was right there. You didn't get to see her. I'm fighting to get mine back, and yours is right there, and you don't want to spend any time with her.
All right.
So, again, still not in my right mind. Brush past that. The I won't say the last red flag, but one of the biggest red flags is he would start coming to my home. So it went from him being at my house to no longer being his own. Again, he worked for a major company where he drives trucks. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed he every weekend was buying liquor and drinking lots of liquor. One morning I caught him taking some type of pill and liquor, and you drive trucks for your job.
All right.
So I'm like, what's going on here? You're putting yourself at risk, your kids, me at risk, because if I'm in a car with you and you're drunk, something can happen. But I realized at that point he was a functioning alcoholic. He had to
Mm.
have liquor and I guess whatever pills those were to function. And everybody from the outside was like, oh, he's such a nice guy. He's always charming. He's sweet, to where nobody would have ever thought this person did what he did. So I remember one day he called and was like, hey, can you come get me? I'm like, what happened? He was like, oh, I was accident. And I was like, okay, well, where's your car? And he was like, oh, forget that car. And I'm like, well, no, if you're in an accident, we want to get your car. You had took one of, my lunch boxes and I kind of want that back. Let's go get it. He
Yeah.
kept giving me the runaround.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, who just leaves their car and doesn't do anything? So find out one day, phone was ringing. Hey, answer that. I answered it, and it was like some debt collector, something or something. Long story short, your car got repoed.
Mm.
So that would
Wow.
explain why your phone, why your power was off. You paying your bills. So you're making lots of money, but all your money was going to liquor and trying to show me this lifestyle that you don't really have.
Yeah.
Can we take a
So
pause?
the straw that broke the yeah.
I want to go back to the part where you talked about his personality, because I think people who are not used to encountering women or men, but specifically men who are abusive, they don't recognize that a lot of people who have a tendency to be abusive actually have really great personalities up front. They have what I like to call their representative. Their representative is very palatable. I mean, they're charming. They have a way with people, and they're really good at reading people. They're really good at reading how you're responding to them. So let's go back to that part. When you first met him, what was it that really attracted you to his personality?
Mm.
He had a beautiful smile and his eyes kind of just lit up, and it's just like it just seemed like he was just a happy person. His energy just seemed great. We were vibing well, and again, he was making me laugh, something that I hadn't did, because behind closed doors I was a basket case. I was crying, I was depressed, I was shut off from the world, because to me my kids were my life. All I've ever wanted to be was a mom. Whew, a mom and a wife.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
him coming in, showing me happiness, took away the missing. Now, granted, it's not that they're not in my life, but you know me, Tiffany. When you met
Yeah.
me, I had primary custody of my kids, so it was always me and my girls, me and my girls. So to flip it to where now I'm getting summers and every other holiday, that was like a slap in the face for me. My whole world was me and my girls. So I was doing everything I could to get the life I knew back, and by not being there and hear somebody just making me laugh and showing me money, it was just like, okay, well, it's a little bit of a relief. And in my mind I'm thinking, oh God, through you sent an angel to help me as I'm going through a stressful part in my life, not realizing the devil was an angel once too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think that's really, really insightful what you just said too, that sometimes our spiritual perspective can influence us to mistake um devils in our lives for angels, right? We mistake things that are intended to break us as blessings. Um, but I think it's also important to recognize that you had enough insight to see, hey, there's something not quite right. So when we look at meeting this person and them making you laugh and filling a void to, hey, something is not right. This person is an alcoholic. What did that time frame look like? Kind of give us an idea of what it looked like meeting them to I don't know if this dude is gonna work out.
And then for before you answer, to the listening audience, so what we've noticed and what we studied is that they all tend to do the same things. It's a pattern of behavior, right?
Pattern.
So
Yeah.
they call it a pit bull syndrome, or not pit syndrome, but they characterize it like a pit bull, right? So pit bulls can be really nice and cuddly and everything like that, but then they can possibly really quick, right?
Mhm.
And every situation that we've read about, what Shay has described is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
They know how to charm everybody, right? And then what he said to you about your kids, like, hey, this is my time with you, put your kids to the side. That's when they're trying to separate you from your friends and your family and all of that stuff. And um, we just want everybody in the audience to listen to this story very carefully because the patterns of behavior are typically the exact same as what Shay is describing.
Or at least very similar.
Yeah.
So Shay,
So to
you
answer
can
your question, the time period was very short.
okay.
The time period was, everybody talks about Steve Harvey's 90-day rule, 90-day relationship, literally, from
Wow.
start to finish. It was only, yeah, it was very, that's what I said. Things were happening very quickly, which I was like, I don't know you that well. How is this happening? But during that time, I had a work injury. Slipped and fell at work, sprained my ankle. So I was in a boot. And again, here he comes to the rescue. You need me. Let's go to the doctor. You need some food. You can't move. So again, he became my crutch of sorts because I felt like I didn't have anyone else. I will go on record to say only one of my friends met him, managed to isolate me from all of my friends
Wow.
and tried to do the same with my family. So to this day, yeah, like I said, only one friend actually met him in person. I never brought him around anybody. Or no, I take that back. There were two people that met him. My best friend and his ex-wife and my other friend.
Mm-hmm.
And when my best friend met him, he was like, oh, he seems good, you know, seems like, he's a good fit for you. I just want you to be happy to where he put on this persona for him as well. And he's really a good leader of people. He didn't even catch on.
Mm.
So, like I said, he's very skilled at what he does to where, he was in the church and, he knew a lot of people from his job. So people were like, oh, him, oh, yeah, oh, him. He's a great guy. He's cool. And of course, here I am trying to tell my story. So people that did end up finding out who it was like, him? No, he would never do that. Okay, well, most people aren't going to just have a on their face saying, hey, I'm an abuser. You don't know that. But again, I was injured in a boot, and the last straw for me was Mother's Day weekend. And I'll tell the date because he's already been convicted. Um, this was May 2016. And we were at the house, and we had a mutual friend, a guy that I've known and talked to for a short period of time, and we just ended up being friends. He knew of him as well. So he was calling, and he was like, Happy Mother's Day. on speaker so he could hear there was nothing, crazy going on. I was like, well, how are your girls? He said, good. I was like, he was like, how are things going with you? And I was like, still going through the same thing, praying for you to get better. Had another guy
Mm-hmm.
friend that called, Happy Mother's Day. And he was like, why are all these dudes calling you? And I'm like, well, even though we're not in relationships for the most part, with the exception of maybe one or two people, I'm cool with everybody I've ever dealt with. Like, we had type of relationship. I'm not a bad person. I mean, you're with me. And he was like, I don't appreciate these dudes calling you, and that's disrespectful. And I'm like, but you heard the conversations. I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't do anything. Have you ever slept with them? And I'm just like, whoa, you're taking this a little too far. Mind you, we're sitting in my room in the bed. He has a beer can in his hand. And it's like early in the morning, again, drinking. So I was like, wait a minute. Everybody else is saying Happy Mother's Day and wishing me Happy Mother's Day. You haven't, and you're sitting right here next to me. His response,
Mm-hmm.
well,
Oh,
you ain't my mama. I didn't even call
wow.
my own mama and tell her Happy Mother's Day. Why am I gonna tell you?
Mm.
So at this point, I'm like, that's real disrespectful. That's messed up. And I'm getting heated. I'm like, oh, the other people are calling me, and you're not, and you talking about you love me. And he was like, what you not gonna do is yell. And I was like, well, this is my house. If you don't like it, you can leave. So he like jumped up, and I saw this look of rage in his eyes. And he was like, he like hit the headboard or something. He was like, "Whoo, you better be glad I'm changed." At that
Oh,
moment,
yeah.
it was a done deal for me. It was done. I was like, "Oh, we're not going to do this." So I turned into, like, I used to talk to a lot of teens and growing up in girl groups. So I turned into mentor Shay. Like, what would you tell your girls? And I was like, okay, we're going to play this real smooth. I was like, what? Just, I just wanted you to say Happy Mother's Day. I don't care that these other people are calling. I wanted it from you. He, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. What can I do to make it better? And I was like, dang, I wish I had some ice cream or something. And he was like, well, I don't have a car. And I'm thinking, damn it. I mean, he got to have my car. At this point, I'm trying to do anything to get him out of my house. So he was like, well, let's go to the store together. And I'm like, whatever. So we go to the store. He gets me some ice cream, buys me some roses, Happy Mother's Day, blah, blah, and go to sleep. The next morning, he was like, can you take me to work? And I was like, oh, I can. I got to be in early. He was like, okay, my friend's going to come get me. So his friend comes and gets him. I go to work and I tell him, this is not going to work. It's me. It's not you. I got a lot going on. This custody battle is taking a lot out of me. I'm trying to financially get back on track. And I just don't want to take you down and drag you into any of this. So it's just best that, we just end this until I get my mind right, get my finances right. And then maybe we can reconvene. That was like on a Monday. He kept calling, kept calling. I mean, hundreds of calls, texts. I'm ignoring him at this point because I've already said I'm done. Somehow, in the midst of these 3 months, he did get to talk to my mom. My mom lives in San Diego, but he did get to talk to her on the phone. Um, I think he did meet my dad. We all went out to Perfect Note. So he met my dad, which I rarely have any guys meet my dad. But again, I'm not thinking straight. I'm just in la la land, whatever, on numb mode. So that was Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, he's calling. He was like, I know you're hungry. I know you want to eat. If you answer the phone, I'll take you out to get something to eat. And I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna fall for this trap. What I saw, I can't risk that. So Friday morning, I get a text. And now I said, I'll never forget this day. It was Friday the 13th,
Hmm.
May
Wow.
2016. And he kept calling, kept calling. I wasn't answering. So I don't know how he got my dad's number or my mom's number. I really don't remember. But he sent a text and he was just like, you're not answering. I'm about you. And hey, are you still going to let me use your car? Because I got to go to my daughter's graduation and answer the phone. And he's just sending messages and I'm ignoring him. So I think I called my mom and I told her, we broke up and he's tripping, but don't worry about it. We broke. I get to work and I get a call from my dad. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, hey, I got a call from such and such. Is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, we broke up. Don't worry about it. My dad was like, well, I don't like to get in your business, but if he hurts you, I'm gonna kill him. And I was like, that man ain't gonna do nothing to me. Don't even worry about it. We broke up. It's fine. So I go about
Wow.
my work day. I'm listening to some sermon, and the sermon was talking about red flags and don't be with this person. I was just like, confirmation. Okay, I'm out. All is well. So I get home, take my boot off. Mind you, he doesn't have a car. Take my boot off. I'm chilling at the house. I was on the phone with my mom, my nurse, and my granddaughter. We're all on Zoom having a great old time, going through memory lane. And then I hear somebody at the door. And I was like, it's probably my neighbor trash. I'm going to call y'all right back. I went to the door. As soon as I opened the door, it's him. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he was like, I text you. Why didn't you answer? I've been calling you. And I'm just like, I told you we're done, whatever. And one of my girlfriends had put a little ponytail in my head. And he was like, I told you I don't like ponytails. Within that few seconds of opening the door in this conversation, he grabbed my head. He started punching me in the face, swinging me back and forth in the hallway. And I was on the floor around my neck. He moved him from around my neck to cover my nose and my mouth. And all I could think of is, I got to get out of the situation. I got to get out of the situation. So I was just like, hey, how would you feel if somebody was doing this to your daughter? I have asthma. I can't breathe. Anything I can say to get him off of me. And he I just saw rage. Like his eyes were black. Like it wasn't even him anymore. So I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm fighting for my life. So he paused, he got off me and was like, so you're just gonna leave me? That it? And I was like, no, I'm not gonna leave you. We good. We can work this out because I'm in survivor mode. Like I gotta get out of here, say whatever you gotta say so this man doesn't try to hurt you further. So I was like, oh, well, I was on the phone with my mom. I gotta call her back. You know how my mom is. If I don't call her back, she gonna be tripping. And he was like, well, I don't have your phone. Mind you, my phone is in his pocket. But he was like, I don't have your phone. I was okay. That didn't work. You got to think of some way. So the way my apartment was set up was if you go through the living room or the hallway, you can come out to the front door. So I was like, oh, my head's hurting. When you was punching me, oh my God, it hurt so bad. So I'm thinking, okay, if I can get to the freezer, I can make a move for it and get out through the front door. So he follows me to the refrigerator. He's throwing ice at my face. So I'm trying to go through the thing, but he blocks it, grabs me by my hair again, and pulls me back down on the couch. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, think. So I was like, okay, I have to call my mom. And he was like, so we're just over. And I was like, no, just give me some time. It's just a lot going on. And I was like, but I have to call my mom. If I don't call her, she's going to trip. And so he was like, here's your phone. You better not say nothing. Nothing wasn't the word he used, but I'm being PG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So called, she was like, what happened? And I was like, hey, mom, nothing. She was like, who was at the door? And I was like, trying to play it off. And I was like, okay, it's now or never. And I was like, mom, help. He's here. He's trying to kill me. Help. And
Wow.
next thing I know, that was it. I just remember just blows to the head. And I was on the couch. Hands were around my neck.
Mm.
And I just saw me being born, me having my children. And everything was just flat. And I'm just like, I'm never going to see my kids again. And my mom's going to have to bury me. Like, this isn't what I wanted. And I just kept thinking, Lord Jesus. And I just started crying out, Jesus, please save me. Jesus, 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 please save me. And I guess I passed out for a minute. And I came to, and out of the corner of my eye, I see him walking towards my room. So I said, okay, well, Jesus, if you can give me the strength to get to this door. I don't know how, but I hobbled to the front door, opened it, and just started screaming, help, help, help. He's trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me. Next thing I know, he came up from behind and pushed me down 15 stairs of cement.
Wow.
And from what my neighbors are saying, I guess he went down another way trying to run away. And they all came down to kind of circle around me. And he came back up and I guess was coming back to attack me again. But I mean, I'm on the ground, like almost unconscious, to where I don't understand why you would be trying to come back. And I look up, and I don't know how long I had been out, how long I had been on the ground. But when I finally look up, I was able to, get my phone. I think I ended up calling my mom, and I don't know. Like I said, my mom was in California. But when I came to, it was every police officer, ambulance, fire truck that Pelham had sitting outside. And by the grace of God, I'm glad I made that phone call, because her being in another state trying to get help to me, that's got to be fearful for other, when you're hearing your child say, you don't know if she's alive, if she's going to make it. And I didn't want that to be the last call that my mom had, as me saying, help, help, he's going to kill me. So I, I get to the hospital, and the nurse, I remember him saying, if you don't believe in God, I want you to start believing. And I said, well, I'm a firm believer in God. He said, based on your neighbor's reports and everything that happened, he was like, I'm going to just be honest, you shouldn't be here. He was like, the blows you took and that fall, somebody upstairs was looking out for you, because you should not be here. And the injuries that you have should be way more than what they are.
Yeah. Oh,
And I just, like I said, I cried, because I never would have, I never saw that coming. I knew
Yeah,
that he had some issues, but not to the point that you were going to take my life because I didn't want to be with you anymore.
yeah.
yeah.
And thank you for sharing that with us. And I know it's hard to recant all of those things that just happened. I mean, that happened to you. But I think it's very important, for people to understand the extent of what these things could, the outcome of what can happen in a situation like this.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Before this podcast, my wife and I were talking, and we were just talking about how statistically 70% of cases where there is murder involved in a domestic violence situation happens the relationship
Ends.
after relationship ends,
Yeah.
because that person who felt like they had that power over you, they feel like they don't want you were theirs,
Yeah.
and they don't want you to be anybody else's.
Yeah.
So a lot of times once you cut off their relationship, that's when those type of people will come after you 70% of the time. And we were just talking about how I think what happens is that a lot of people don't know the extent to which those people will go to.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, he was a little crazy, but he ain't that crazy. You
And
know
I
what I'm saying? Or, he was, when I was in a relationship with him, he was a little thrown off, but he ain't gonna get too thrown. I mean, it's over. I'm done with it now. But you just never know the extent to which those type of people will go to in
and
that
I
situation.
and I think it's important to recognize for you, Shay, that this happened in a span of 90 days where you began a relationship and ended a relationship. So you really didn't have enough time to really know just how bad it can get. We know of people who have been in domestic violent relationships and they've been in those relationships for months or years. But this, you said, happened in a span of 90 days where you were like, hey, this person is giving me everything I need to, I can't do this. This person, something's not right with them. And so I can imagine that you would have never thought that this person would try to come and take your life.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine, you know, what that feels like. And I'm so, so, so sorry that you've had to endure that, because I recognize that trauma is trauma. And so when something like that happens to you, it really kind of throws you into a state of confusion. Um, but I can say, you know how us church people, those people that came up in the church say, I don't look like what I've been through. I can say that you don't look like what you've been through. Um, which is a testament to you doing the work. And I kind of want to talk about that because again, I was shocked when I found out about what you had been through, right? When I seen it on Facebook last year. But since experiencing that level of trauma, what has it looked like to recover from that? Like what kind of work have you done
Yeah, what was
to
that process
to
for you?
heal? What did the process look like? And taking it even one step further, what does it look like to date after you've been through domestic violence? Is that even something that you consider doing?
I will say, and I told a couple of close friends, even though the bad experience happened, and people, I don't know how you do it. I'd be in a corner, jacket. I couldn't come out of that. I don't want to say it had to happen, but my steps had already been ordered. So God already knew this was going to happen. And they understand the whole process of sometimes things don't happen to you for you, but so that you can help somebody else get through. I couldn't see it as I was going through it, but after talking to my counselor and going to therapy, going to Freedom Life group at church, just relying on God and having an amazing support system. Now, when I started telling my story, like I said, a lot of my family didn't know until I shared that story online. And they were like, I'm your brother, I'm your cousin. How the heck did I not know? And I'm like, I just wasn't in a space at the time to talk about it. It was embarrassment on my part.
Yeah.
I felt humiliated. I just felt small, like the fact of such a strong individual and I'm strong for everybody else, but I allowed this situation to come and take me out of my character and almost make me lose my life. So it wasn't something I wanted to share with anybody because had I been in my right mind, I'd have been like, boy, bye. No, I don't need your money. Nothing, I have my own money. But again, my defenses were so down. I allowed somebody to come in my life and almost take it because I wasn't in my right mind. But again, like I said, going to counseling, therapy helped because it was some things from my childhood that I hadn't healed from or that I had mentally blocked out that allowed me to go all the way back and heal from things. So then that way I could be a better friend, a better mom, a better whatever you may call it. And by telling my story, I'm realizing I am able to help other people who may not publicly say anything, but will inbox me or say, you know what, thank you for that post. Thank you for telling that. I would have never known because this happened to me, but because you got out, I can get out. Or people saying, I would have, oh my God, you're out here living your best life and you're laughing and you're smiling and you're encouraging others. And I say half of the time when I was doing that, I was going through myself. But I had to encourage others because by encouraging others, it was a process of me healing myself as well. I will
Yeah.
say
Mm-hmm.
I did forgive my abuser. I won't forget, but I did forgive. And I know that's like a big thing. And people are like, oh, I'll never forgive. I can't boast about my love for God and me being a Christian and being a better person if I'm going to hold that grudge. And different strokes for different folks, but for my walk, I have to forgive people when they do me wrong, when they hurt me. It doesn't mean that we have to have that relationship we had before. It doesn't mean that we have to speak again. But my hearts of hearts and the work that I put in has taught me that I have to forgive them. So that way I can heal from the inside out and not
I,
make
Yeah.
the same mistake twice or sort.
and I want to pause right there because talking about forgiveness, because I think a lot of people mistake forgiveness for dismissal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm dismissing or excusing your behaviors, but forgiveness is really for you and not the other person. Like we hear
Exactly.
that saying so many times, but the reality is Forgiveness is about releasing the pain and the harm that you're constantly reliving by
And letting it
holding
go.
on to that,
Mhm.
right? I mean, by letting go of that. And so it really is a process that has to happen in order for you to heal. Um, I like I can't remember what I was watching, but different mental health therapists use this term like the body keeps score, right? And so our body, whether we focus it on it or not, holds trauma. And when you actually go through the process of releasing and processing what has happened to me, how do I feel about it? How is it impacting me? And why is it important for me to let this go? You can actually move forward. If you don't get to a place where you can forgive, a lot of times it means that you have not healed from the trauma. It's like a scar, right? A lot of times, if we get an injury, we experience through the healing process a scar, right? The scar is an indication that something has happened, but there should no longer be any pain associated with that scar.
Mm.
But if every time you touch that space where there's an injury, even if it looked like it's healed, if there's any type of pain, it has not healed. So forgiveness is like experiencing an injury, and when you forgive, there's a scar. There's an indication that something has happened because you don't forget it, but it means that there is no longer pain and trauma associated with where you experienced that injury.
Mm.
And so I think that's important what you said. Like you said, different strokes for different folks. But the reality is to really truly be healed and move forward, you have to go through that process.
And to take it a step further, the mental um actually facilitates what happened to the physical, right? So forgiveness mentally will also let you let go physically. So
Yes.
even in the massage realm, um, we see so many people who have not let go. So many people, it's like, oh, I can't relax. What you're really saying is that I can't let go, right? So you're holding on to something.
And that you
So
can't
when
be vulnerable, because letting go means being vulnerable. And to many people, being vulnerable means you're susceptible to injury or pain. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. So when you're letting go, we see it physically. When they're holding on, their body is tight. They have a restricted range of motion. They can barely move. They have headaches all the time. The back is hard. The body is hard. But when they finally let go and learn to relax or let go, the body softens. The body opens up, is able to receive. So what you're going through, that forgiveness process, that letting go process, that is necessary so that you can move on with your life and be totally healed mentally and physically.
And I want to say this. I want you
I
to,
will
I
go
do
on
want,
record and say,
I didn't hear you say that again.
I said I will go on record and say, the forgiveness didn't come until after that verdict dropped.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to know. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what happened to him, and then I do want you to answer the question for me: is dating after her experience like that even a possibility? What can women expect to experience in just trying to prepare themselves to move beyond that? Do you even look for love again? So let's talk about after the situation happened. um the police showed up. He gets arrested. Let's talk about him being held responsible, and then what life after going through the healing process and trying to move forward looks like for you.
Um, I'll be transparent and I'll say that process is where I did kind of lose my faith
Mhm.
because I felt like I'm the one that has life who's been put at risk, and he's freely going to work, walking the streets, doing whatever. So pretty much what happened is he got arrested that night. That was Friday the 13th time, I guess they booked the thing. It was probably Saturday morning. Sunday he was out.
Mm.
Wow.
So he only was in jail from what, probably about 9 or 10 Friday night till early Sunday morning. Mind you, I'm just being released from the hospital with my dad, and we're looking online to make sure he's still in jail. And so at
He
this
was out.
point, now I'm on pins and needles. Where do I go? Where do I, can I go to work? Can I go out? And I like became a hermit. Like I shut down. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything for fear
Yeah.
that this person is now really going to come back and try to hurt me. I mean, like out completely, because now he's free, and he's his stuff is all on the website. His job has been notified. So it was like crazy. I'm having like, because I was at the time. The court system there is way out in Columbiana. So I'm driving all far to these court hearings, and sometimes he'll show up, sometimes he didn't. Then in, I think, one court case, he came, like it was one for the restraining order, one for the trial. So it was two separate things that I'm having to keep coming back to. And I'm like, we have this up already. And he came to one with another female. And I was like, how does this happen? You
Wow.
just try to take my life. How are you showing up in court with another female that's like all on your side? Like, hey, babe, I got you. Remember, I think I was there on my dad, and I was just like, how dumb could she be? And then I had to realize, well, dummy, you were dumb. You fell for it, so you don't know what he may have told her. He could have put it all like it was you. So I had to get out of myself. That's what I'm saying. I didn't forgive during that process because I was still hurt. I was mad. I was angry. Here I am wasting gas, wasting time, going back and forth to court. And he's just living his best life as if nothing happened.
So it sounds like
So
during this process
that,
that you didn't feel protected, like this, and I think that's something we found when we were researching that a
Yeah.
lot of women during this process, because a lot of the people who are in these positions of power to
Are
really,
men.
yeah, to really make a change are men, and they don't understand the experience of a woman experiencing domestic violence. So to me, it sounds like you felt like you were unprotected during this time.
I did get the protection order. But I guess my terminology at the time is, how do you have people sitting in jail for selling marijuana, something that somebody wants to go to them and purchase, and stuck there forever, but yet here's somebody that tried to take life and he's free to walk the streets. So when I say I lost my faith, I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. What kind of justice system is this that you're allowing abusers and murderers? I know people who have really murdered somebody. You're street awaiting the trial. You have people sitting in a cell for life over narcotics. Where
Yeah.
is the make it make sense to me? So
Mhm.
it was just really baffling to me. Like, to the, anybody else probably might forget it. I'm gonna give up. I can see now why people don't stick through with the whole process. It's frustrating. Yes, you have a restraining order, but 9 times out of nothing, because people still come over, they won't do anything. In my defense, the sheriff that came that night when it happened also came to the hospital. Like I said, I don't know if it was angels in the outfield, but he made it a point to put an officer at my complex
Mm.
for,
That's
I think that
amazing.
officer was there for about 90 days. So every time I came home, officer was there. When I left, officer was there. Officer escorted me to work. I had officer's personal cell phone number to where if I went out, call and I'll come right there. So that kind of
That's
did help
amazing.
as far as the police part of it, but just the judge and trial, and I'm like, it took that 16, I think it was like a year or two before a verdict was dropped, because it kept getting a well, let's go to the negotiation table. And I was like, there's no negotiate. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not negotiating anything. I want him to serve the full amount of time that the law will allow. The verdict did end up that he is a convicted felon. He did not have to serve any more physical jail time because no
Wow.
one ever come forward to testify. But
Wow.
for the next 10 years, if he so much gets a traffic ticket and acts out in public, he will have to go serve that remainder of the 10 years in jail.
Mm.
Okay. I want to touch on some things that you said too, in sharing how that process went. Um, I shout out to Pella Police Department. The fact that they posted a police officer up at your apartment complex, because that means, you know,
They recognize the pattern of behavior.
they recognize
Yeah.
that it could be dangerous for you. But I also want to highlight what you said. Within less than 48 hours, he was back out living his life. And I think when we focus on that statistic that 70% of women who leave a domestic relationship end up dead or murdered at the hands of their abuser, you can understand why. Because, like you said, there's more emphasis placed on someone that's pushing marijuana to people who are typically willing consumers than someone who has been violently assaulted by someone they were involved in intimately, right? But me and my husband were looking, me and Lemar were looking at, just researching and doing our homework. And I think that this guy that did a TED talk on domestic violence, he actually works in the field. Like, I think he's like
He's an
best,
attorney.
he's an attorney
Mhm.
that deals with cases surrounding domestic violence, gave a really great example of what it feels like for
Before you go into, I want to ask you: have you ever heard from friends and family? Have they ever questioned you when it came to this situation?
like
Like
question your
why?
own behavior.
Yeah, like question your behavior. Like, well, why did you stay? Well, why did you leave after the first few red flags? Or have you had to experience that?
Um, yes and no. The one mutual friend that we had, he was just kind of like, really? Him? I don't see him doing that. And I'm just like,
Mm.
do you want to see the pictures? I mean, here's proof, here's the police. And it kind of just threw me off because I'm just like, I'm not going to lie about this. Nobody's going to make this up. Do you see my black eye? Do you see that I'm going through physical therapy now that, I got two, an ankle brace on one, a knee brace on the other leg? Like, it just, that threw me off. But like I told you, he had isolated me from so many other people. They didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it happened, it was just like, wait, who, what, who was you talking to? Wait, what? You was in a relationship? Who's? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. So it wasn't as if my friends could even think because most of them never even saw him or knew who he was.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess that would make sense because it was such a short-lived relationship. But the example I was going to give was that this attorney talked about what people such as yourself who are victims of domestic violence experience. He said the best example that a victim of domestic violence gave him is like being in an ocean and there's a shark, right? And as long as you can see that fin of the shark sticking up through the water, there's some sense of security or safety because you can see exactly where the shark is. So you can anticipate the danger, right? But the moment that shark disappears underwater and the fin disappears from your line of sight, you no longer know where or when the danger is going to occur. And so I liken that to your experience of this person goes to jail after attempting to kill you, which is attempted murder, really. And they are let out within 48 hours. And for you, I can only just imagine what it feels like to not know when or where this person can be. Like you said, you became a hermit crab. You were staying in your house because you didn't know if he was going to show up at your job or if you were going to run into him in the streets. And so it really makes sense when we hear that statistic that 70% of women are dying at the hands of their victims. If the process is I attempt to kill someone within 48 hours, I'm back on the street. And I want to apologize to our viewers. I did not check my Wi-Fi setting before we started streaming, and I think I had it on the wrong Wi-Fi setting. So if it's a little glitchy for y'all, I apologize. I don't want to act like I don't notice that it's been a little glitchy. Um, but I do want to go. I want to say this because I think it's important for women who have either experienced domestic violence or observed someone who's experienced domestic violence and are a support system for their women, for those women. What does it look like after you've come out of something like that to try to find love again? I know that as a mental health counselor, I've dealt with women who have gone through sexual trauma, who have been raped, and I had a person that I worked with who had been violently raped, and the attacker came from behind. And so she noted that every time she would be in the grocery store or the bank, and with a man would approach the line and stand behind her, she would automatically experience those physiological responses like her heart racing, or feeling like it was hard to breathe because she experienced a brutal trauma with someone coming from behind. And she was like, I had no control over it. Every time I was in line and a man walked behind me, I experienced that. So I know that, with you experiencing that level of trauma and it being so violent, what does that look like trying to move forward and find love in your life after experiencing something like that?
Very reserved. I'm not gonna even lie. I still am. I did have a relationship after it just ended not too long ago. But it for me, I just I guess I only involve myself with people where I can feel a sense of security. So if I don't feel like you can protect me, I kind of shy away, and it's unfair to others, but based on my past, I have to feel protected. Like I can't be in a situation to where I feel like, you know, the whole little phrase where people be like, "Oh, my dude gonna air this place out." Yeah, I got to be with somebody that's gonna air this place out because
Mhm.
I've been so strong for so long. I'm tired of being the strong person.
Mm.
So the last person I was with, they were in a position of authority and security. So I felt protected. And that was like, I think maybe one of the main reasons why I dealt with the individual, because I felt safe around that
Mhm.
person. Um, Now for dating, like, sad to say, again, it's unfair, but if I see anything remotely familiar, I'm out. And I could be blocking my blessing, but I can't do it anymore. The
Yeah.
flags almost cost me my life. So
Mm.
if I see anything similar, I withdraw. I don't let people to my house. I used to
Yeah.
have people at my house all the time, my kids, friends, have parties, cook, always have people at my house. Some of my closest friends do not know where I live right now.
Wow.
And it's just a protective mechanism for me. Not that I don't trust them, but it's still a healing process to where I'm going to have to get to that point where I feel completely safe again to have people know where I live and not run the feeling that they may tell. And it's not that they know, it's just I felt like I didn't protect myself enough. So now I'm like way overprotective to where I don't
Mhm.
let people, like, I think only two people know where I live. And that's very rare. I'll be like, hey, let's go out. Okay, well, I'll meet you out. And
Mm.
they're
Yeah.
like, but I used to be at your house all the time. I'm your friend. I know, but I'll meet you somewhere. Um, I am certified to carry a gun. I have my permit. About 95% of the time it's with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I I just feel like I have to protect myself at all times. And I did see him. This was still while the verdict was still going on, and I was out somewhere. Oh, I was at the comedy club with some friends. I was first getting out, being out in public, and all of a sudden this eerie feeling came over me, and I'm like, "What the hell?" I look to my left, and it's him,
Mm.
and like my whole body froze. I I didn't know what to do. It was just like an outer body experience. And so my girlfriends were with me and they were like, "Don't worry about it. We good. Like we good. If something pop
Yeah.
off, we good." And they was reminding me like, "You're not in a brace anymore. You're in your right mind now. He can get it today. Like you're
Yeah.
back. So if he stepped to you today, if you got to go toe to toe, we ain't gonna let that happen because we got something for that. But you good." So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of was just weird for me. But like I said, after the verdict and they said he got whatever, it was kind of a sense of knowing that, okay, if you do mess up, that's your life. Whether you try to end mine and you're in jail for life, or you try to do anything else, you're at least going to be in jail for 10 years. But the dating aspect of it is still kind of up in the air. I don't really trust too many males. And it's a lot for me to trust somebody, and only two men in this world that I actually trust, only because, somebody tells you this and feeds you this and then they try to take your life. It kind of makes it hard for me of sorts. And like I said, I had my family here. My mom was like my biggest supporter, my church group, my Hello Roof sisters, my little sister that I've adopted. Um, they all were like my biggest supporters. But even still, with all of that, I just like my dad was kind of there and then he kind of wasn't. So I just don't trust males now.
Mm.
I wanna I wanna say that that's not an uncommon thing, Shay.
Yeah.
Um, it takes time to really recover and learn to trust yourself. And that's really what it's about, because a lot of us, when we talked about that forgiveness aspect, you said that you forgave the person who attacked you, right? You forgave this person. But a lot of times it takes much longer for us to get to a place where we forgive ourselves, where we forgive ourselves for not meeting our own expectations, right?
How can I let this happen?
How could I let this happen to me, right? And so I think it's important to recognize that that process looks different for everyone. We have a question where someone said that, "Hi, is it normal to have PTSD and brain damage from abuse?" And yes, um, depending on the
I don't have
severity.
brain damage,
Well,
but yes, I have diagnosed.
exactly. And here's the thing, it depends on the severity a lot of times of the trauma, but sometimes you don't even have to be physically
It
harmed.
can be mental
It
as
can
well.
be mental. It can be all about your perception.
Mm-hmm.
If you felt like and perceived that you were at risk of losing your life in that situation, the effects of that trauma can be long lasting.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it takes time to heal. And there are some traumas that you never fully recover to your original state, right? Or your previous state. And so you have to learn to adjust to life after that. So it's very common to experience anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. It's normal to not trust people again, or to be very slow about jumping into relationships. And that's why I asked Shay, how does love look like? How does love look for you after this situation? We're gonna kind of wrap this up at the end, but I want to kind of end the podcast with um really talking to you and just getting your advice. I know that you're not an expert on the issue, but you've been through this personally. If you could give women advice on what to look for or how to conduct themselves when they are entering a new relationship, what would that advice look like so that they can avoid experiencing the type of trauma that you experienced? Well, how would you advise those women?
Say make sure you have a good village, people
Mhm.
that you can lean on, that can, if you are in a bad spot, they can kind of tell you, hey, that ain't it. Don't let anybody isolate you from the
Mm,
people that can help you out of the situation. When you see the red flags, stop. Don't look at it as the little funny meme going around. Oh, I thought it was a circus. Get out. Just get out. Like if you sense something is wrong, pull away, pull back. And if the person isn't who you thought they were, or if the flags aren't, time and circumstance will show that. But
Yeah.
don't just sit around thinking, oh, okay, well, that was just this. It can't happen to me. Never think that it can't, because it can happen to anybody. And, just questions. Ask lots of questions, many questions, because 9 times out of 10, the answers are going to dictate if this person is telling the truth or not. And just
right.
watch their actions. Do words and actions match up? Do they just sell you a bunch of wolf tickets, or are the actions and words aligned? Because if you sit back and actually watch and learn and not get caught up in emotions or feelings or whatnot, 9 times out of the 10, for a lot of the people I talk to in the support groups, they knew in the beginning that that wasn't it,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
just stayed because they needed the security. They needed for financial stability. They felt alone and they didn't have anybody else, so they stayed. I will say my faith, my circle of friends, my parents, my upbringing, the fact that I have 2 daughters, um, that kind of was like, hey, I kind of telling myself, would you be okay with your daughter dating somebody like this? Why are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then going to exactly what you just said, some advice from the same attorney that did the TED talk was make it our business, right? So some of those friends that you talked about that he isolated you from, a lot of times people was like, well, I don't want to get in their personal business. Or I might think this, but I ain't trying to get into that business, right? But if you have an inkling, if you feel as a friend that there's some red flags, you need to make it your business.
Yeah, and I think like you said, he isolated you from your friends. So some of your friends didn't even know if you were in a relationship. I know my friends, right? Like for instance, my best friend, I'm gonna hear from her. If there comes a time where she extra quiet, I ain't seeing you really post on social media and stuff like that. I'm like, something's not right. I'm gonna reach out like, what's going on? Because I've been friends with this person so long, I know what typical behavior looks like. So, like Lamar said, you make it your business. If you have a friend that all of a sudden who, a friend who's normally been very socially present in
Yeah,
your life, very present in your life. You hear from them every other day, once a week, to all of a sudden it's 3, 4 weeks and you're not hearing from them. That's not typical. So make it your business to be like, girl, what's going on? Where are you at? What you doing?
yeah, yeah. And I think that's very important too. And I know, we try to give our friends space, especially when they enter new relationships. We're like, oh, she got a boo right now. We're gonna let them chill. She ain't hanging out with us, or she caught up in a new relationship. But at the same time, it goes back to what you said, having that circle of friends that know, like, hold on, something ain't right.
Yeah.
So now it's time to make it our business. Jump into this and see what's going on.
And I wanna end this by doing two things. I want to kind of talk about it doesn't really matter how long you're in a relationship, right? I have a friend who was killed by someone that she had been dating since college. How long have we known Kim?
We know Kim.
I've known her since 2000.
Yeah,
Okay, it's 2021,
yeah.
and she died in 2020 at the hands of someone she met in college that we all knew.
that she was married to.
that she was married to and had gone through years of abuse with, right? It was
And
just
she
a
had just came to see us.
that just came to see us. And the thing about it is, I remember our last conversation, her talking about recognizing how toxic this relationship was and was taking the steps to basically reclaiming her life. She actually got a gun. And I don't know all the details of her murder, but I wholeheartedly believe she was murdered with the gun that she bought to protect herself, because I don't think it's a coincidence that right after you purchase a gun and start learning how to use it, then you end up shot dead, right? And I think it really hit home for me that sometimes you can be in a relationship so long, and when you make a decision to leave, you really truly think that that person is not going to harm you. It don't matter how long you've been in a relationship. If this person has physically, mentally, sexually, or financially abused you in any way, it doesn't matter if it's been 90 days like Shay's story, or if it's been 16, 17, 18 years like my friend Kim. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them,
Yeah,
right? And so
absolutely.
go to whatever extent that you need to go to live. Don't think that just because you've gone through a cycle of abuse years and years and years that this person will not get to the point to take your life, because the reality is the longer you've been with someone and the longer they have maintained this control over you, the more likely it is that they're going to try to maintain that control,
Yeah.
right? And then I want to end this conversation with saying thank you so much, Shay, for being in this space, sharing your experience, being vulnerable with us, because it takes a lot of bravery
Yeah.
to really talk about what your experience is. It takes a lot of bravery to admit, hey, I recognize that I was in this place and that I dismissed a lot of things that I would not have ordinarily dismissed. That shows that you have really started doing the work. And although the healing process may only be halfway done, I want to say I can see that um you're doing the work. I know that because I consider you a friend, even though we don't talk that often, but we follow each other on Facebook. When we run into each other, it's always love. But just even watching you go through the process of regaining and reclaiming your physical health. Girl, you look good. You done lost weight. I see you going to the beach all the time. I'm like, Shay is out here living her life to the fullest. And so I want to just say thank you so much, because it is inspiring other people. And I don't want to take lightly what you're doing, being here
And
today.
and before we close,
I
say
will say, even though I've gone through counseling and therapy, um, I've learned that healing happens for me every day. It's something that I'm going to continuously have to do, have moments. This month alone has just been really, really emotional because with it being the domestic violence survivor month, I've had those triggers. I've had flashbacks. I've had
Sure.
some friends that have been going through things and then some death, realize that all was a trigger and just got me like super emotional and in my feelings. And I've reached out to a couple of friends who they've been in my corner. They've reassured me, it's okay. You're human. Like, you can have those moments. It's not going to be like you're going to forget everything that ever happened. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I appreciate those people that allow me to be vulnerable, that allow me, like, get a post that says to my cape and cry, or if I call you and say I'm going through, they don't judge me. They allow me to vent and cry on me. It's gonna be, or see that, you know what, she's not herself. Get up, good dressed. We're going out, without me even having to tell them I'm not having a good day. I had, a back last night. So while I continuously do the work and heal, I'm here, and I have my moments to where, I do think about what happened. And even in some of my newer dating experience or relationships, it's like, wait a minute, hey, you might be going down the same path again. Get your together, stop now, certain situations or circumstances to make you backtrack. All the work that
Yeah.
I've gone through, the healing, the counseling, I can't let one person or one situation put me back in a place that I've already healed from.
Yeah.
And what I was gonna say is that, sometimes we have to, the people on the outside looking in. This is who I'm talking to right now. And I've been one of these people. I mean, I grew up in a house where domestic violence was present. And sometimes, and I've even asked my mom, why are you still with this man? You know what I mean? So even friends or people on the outside be like, if they know that those things are going on, why you spit? We blame the victim.
Yeah.
And I found myself in that situation, even doing the research for this interview today. I learned so much because it was like, we have to look at it through the lens of the person being victimized. There's so much, and you brought it up earlier, Shay, in your circle. There's so much that people think about that they can lose. First of all, they think about losing their life. One thing that people don't think about is that 20% of the victims of domestic violence, oftentimes, where 20% of the cases, somebody else gets injured. So whether it's children, police officers, or friends, somebody who intervenes get injured 20% of the time. So the person that's being abused thinks about all of these things. They think about, well, what's going to happen to me if I leave him financially? What's going to happen to me if I leave him physically? What is he going to do to me? What is he going to do to my children? So they decide to stay in those relationships. So the people on the outside,
Right.
we have to learn how to view the situation from the lens of the person that's being abused. We also have to learn how to judge the conduct of the abuser and not the person who's being abused. So sometimes we going
Right.
back to that, where I gave her the opportunity to leave and she didn't leave. We have to start thinking about, how can we stop this other person from abusing her?
Yeah.
What can we do um, within our power to stop this person from causing this potentially deadly situation? And I think a lot of times we don't think that way.
Yeah.
The first thing we think about is, well, she could leave if she wanted to,
And I
and that's what the people on the outside think. Well, if she wanted to leave, she could leave. She know my number. She can call me if she needs some help.
And I think, to add to that, one more thing I would like to say is, for those of us who are in positions where we can advocate for victims of domestic violence, advocate for the people who are the abusers to actually get real help. It is a great thing when they're held responsible for their actions, because they are responsible, right? They're the ones who made that decision to handle things the way that they handle them. But the reality is, there has to be some type of work that happens with those people. Yes, they have to be in the mental and emotional place to accept that this is who they are and that they do need help. But sometimes you have people who recognize that they need help and they don't know how to break that cycle. And so they keep reliving that cycle over and over again until they end up in the worst position, facing the worst consequences. So for those of us who are in positions where we're in mental health, where we're in public policy, or we're in law enforcement, criminal justice, all of these places, let's advocate for those people who are showing up in these spaces and in these relationships and with these toxic mentalities and behaviors to actually get mental health work. Um, and I think that's an important part. We need to start making sure we're uh, putting funding towards people actually getting the help they need, and not just them, but also the victims. I think that if we're involved with these people in court cases, that it should automatically come that they're offered so much time of mental health counseling.
Yeah.
Um, and so I want to thank everybody who's tuned in today. Thank you for
Yes,
spending
and
your
say one
Sunday
thing.
evening. Shay, I want to give special thanks to you. Um, my California sister. I know that's one of the things that I think bonded us immediately is that we were both from California. And I want to say thank you. You are a beautiful soul. You are a wonderful mom. I have seen firsthand how you deal with your girls. I seen Grandma talking with her grandbaby, who is a whole type of mood these days because she's getting so old. But thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing your story and your testimony.
You have any final
I
words?
do say one thing real quick.
Okay. Oh, did we lose her?
One
Hold on, Shay. It sounds like you're breaking up. Can you hear us?
that
You still there, Shay? I want to give her some time to come back.
Say, can you hear us?
I think she's gone. Well, guys, it looks like we have lost Miss Shay. I appreciate you guys tuning in to Living the Stress Life. Um, we hope to bring topics this season to you that is going to be life changing and that helps you experience growth and healing in your life. And until next time, live your best life.
Living through your stress life.
Oh, hold on. I was about to end that, but let's see. It looks like
it's like Shay coming back on. Hold on 1 second. Final words.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm sorry. Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm back. I was saying I just want to give a big, huge thank you to the Safe House program. They were there from the start to the finish. They've connected me with some great people. They provided resources when I had to move and had absolutely nothing. They provided me furniture, helped me find somewhere to live. And they still, check on me to this day, check on, make sure my kids are okay. So there are programs out there that will help. You just have to, go out and see them. But they provided the free counselor. They provided food and groceries, clothing, anything that I needed to get back on my feet.
Can you share that information with us? Do you have that information available? And if you
Yeah,
don't have it available,
I'll send it to Tiffany via text so she has it.
And I think I have it too. I'm a lot of people don't know that I work for a nonprofit with homeless young mothers, and a lot of the mothers I work with experience domestic violence. So I actually do think I have the information for the Safe House. So you guys be looking out for that. Living a Stress Life will share information for the Safe House. But go ahead and send it to me, Shay, just to be on the safe side when you get a chance.
and we'll put it in the comments under this live right here so that you'll have that information.
Well, guys, that is all for us. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, live your best life.
Living through your stress life.
Holla.
Peace.
Bye.